So many people are probably familiar with this thing right here, and this is the Nintendo Entertainment System. It was the best-selling game console of the 1980s in North America. But in Japan, it was this thing, the Famicom. And what many people don't know about the Famicom is that it could play games off floppy disks. Should you buy a Famicom Disk System 2018? What is this thing, and why is this video more off the cuff than usual? We'll find out in today's video, where as usual a bearded guy on the internet tells you about old video games. Welcome to Stuff We Play, home of everything weird and retro. If that sounds cool to you, why not subscribe? And today we're talking about the Famicom Disk System. Now, full disclosure before we begin this, I am still a poor college student. As such, I still know that Famicom Disk Systems are expensive, but I'm currently at Epic Games and More down Quadra Village in Victoria, British Columbia, where they actually had one of these in stock, and they have been gracious enough to let me use it for this video. So what is the Famicom Disk System? So NES games are usually pretty big cartridges, but in Japan they actually came on these little well, this one's a little black cartridge, but it actually came in a variety of different colors and whatnot. But Nintendo realized that games on cartridge got a bit expensive. So what they did was they gave the option to play games off floppy disks. Floppy disk games are interesting, and it's a shame I don't have any to show off. But essentially, instead of paying the equivalent of like what you'd pay nowadays for a modern game, you pay the equivalent of, I think it was $20 to get a game that was on a floppy disk. I've actually talked about a floppy disk game before, and that was All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. Now, one thing to keep in mind about these floppy disk games, like anything released on a floppy disk, these games are rewritable. Essentially, you had your choice between either going to a game store and buying a game, or getting a blank disc and going to a kiosk in Japan where you can actually write a game to your floppy disk. Now, some games were huge, such as RPGs, and took up multiple floppy disks, and that's one of the downsides to floppy disks, that there is disk swapping and of course load times. But some were small enough that you could fit one on each side of a disc. And because of this too, though, you'll find some games are, say, labeled as The Legend of Zelda or Metroid, but instead are something completely different, like, well, Othello, and that's because someone probably paid the $4 fee, I think it was like 400 yen back then, to get their disc rewritten. Now let's take a look at the unit itself. Like the Famicom itself, it's this really nice red and black color scheme, and the first thing you need to even get it to work is this. This is the Famicom Disk System RAM cartridge, and it plops on the top of your Famicom like a cartridge. Now, something you don't need but is also nice is there's this holder. The Famicom Disk System is a perfect size to be a nice stand for your family computer, Famicom, whatever you want to call it. The system itself never came bundled with an AC adapter. The Famicom Disk System can actually run off of 6C batteries. 6C batteries. Granted, from what I've heard, they do last a while, but man, that is a lot of big batteries. The main thing you need to keep in mind with these Famicom disk systems, though, is that they do have a few hardware issues. Mainly, this is a belt-driven floppy disk drive, and over time your belt will wear out. But thankfully, due to the popularity of retro game collecting nowadays, you can get new belts. That and just the errors that you commonly get with floppy disks nowadays. Floppy disks weren't really as durable as cartridges, and while they were certainly cheaper at the time, they weren't as durable. But most Famicom disk system, well, discs do seem to work nowadays. And it's nice too, because there were a lot of really cool games released on this. Not a ton of exclusive games per se, but for example, Metroid was originally released on the Famicom Disk System, and in Japan, instead of having a password system, it had a save feature. Furthermore, The Legend of Zelda was originally released in Japan as a Hyrule Fantasy, and while that game had a save system much like it did in the US, it also had an extra sound channel. Other games of note are the previously mentioned All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. And even Super Mario Bros. 2, the Japanese version. While that, along with many other games, later got released on cartridge when Nintendo decided to phase out the disc system. I think it was because they realized as time went on that floppy disks were just not a sustainable format to go with. Super Mario Bros. 2 was originally a floppy disk game, and that's how it was released in Japan, and really that was the only way you could get the original release of Super Mario Bros. 2, not counting the Mario All-Stars version, until the Wii Virtual Console. So the real question here is, how much does this retail for nowadays? Well, in the box, and keep in mind, this is kind of like the Sega CD in a way, and I've done a Sega Genesis buying guide before, but on top of the cost for a Famicom to even use the disc system, The disc system itself, in box like this one is, will probably run you about 150 bucks. Of course you can find them for less, and of course if you use a service like Zen Market or buy from a place like Yamatoku on eBay, you can get it for less, but you still run the risk of, if you can't read Japanese when you're maneuvering some Japanese auction sites, if you know if it's tested or not. Furthermore, something you might want to keep in mind with this disc system as well is that it will work on the top loader NES. Not the regular NES because of its weird VHS tray system here, but if you use one of these game converters, plop the RAM cartridge on your game converter and put it into a NES top loader. In conclusion, should you buy a Famicom Disk System in 2018? Well, to be honest, I feel like this one is for collectors only. If you're a Nintendo lover or a game collector in general, you will absolutely love this system. I think it's a great addition to any collection. But really and truly, if you're just into collecting more casually, or if you don't want to risk having to replace a belt, then you may be better off just passing on this one. I maybe begin to ramble on just a bit. I've had a lot of fun talking about this. Thank you, EGM, for letting me look at this system. It's really different than what I usually do, unscripted video. I had a fun ton talking about the Famicom Disk System. It's a great system, and it's a system that I'd hope to be able to talk about more in the future. What weird game console should I talk about in future videos, which I do for other buying guides? I guess this was kind of a buying guide, though I didn't really have a ton of games to show off. Let me know down in the comment section below. And while you're at it, why don't you subscribe to Stuff We Play for more great content like this, or even back us on Patreon, because every dollar earned from Patreon does go back into the channel itself. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Stay classy, and I'll see you next time.